Universities are struggling to cope with the amount of applications after the matric class of 2024 obtained a record number of bachelor passes. Over 100,000 people do not have places due to a few available spaces at various institutions. Universities South Africa CEO Dr. Phethiwe Matutu is with us this evening, and she joins us from Pretoria. Doctor, good evening to you, and thank you very much for your time. Before we talk about plans to accommodate these number of students, or should we say prospective students, let's talk about the number of people that universities around the country are unable to accommodate right now. How many would you say there are?
By proxy, thank you very much for having me, Xoli, and good evening to the viewers of Newzroom. It's quite a substantive number that universities are unable to accommodate. We are making an estimation because when you look at the bachelor's pass, the difference between that and what universities can accommodate is 130,000. Wow. So on the basis of that, one can assume that there are quite a number of students who will end up in the private higher education institutions instead of the public ones that we manage as Universities South Africa.
Is there a plan from your end as Universities South Africa to speak to the institutions about how they plan to accommodate these students? 130,000 that will probably wander our streets. That's a large number.
The Department of Higher Education and Training, through the Minister, had included these private higher education institutions in our consultations, and also they register them. So the opportunity of discussing with them their spaces and so on, I assume that they've done so already.
Yeah. You would understand, Dr. Matutu, that failure to get into public universities, as you say, there are the private colleges, and some of them are bogus, really. Do you have any words of advice, particularly for parents who may be faced with a desperate child at home who really wants to study further, but they simply aren't, in order for them to avoid being scammed? I think that's what I'm trying to get at.
The Department of Higher Education and Training has got a list of accredited institutions of higher learning. So one must check there before registering a student. And also, when a student has decided that they are going to register for a particular course, they must check whether it's accredited with the Council on Higher Education or SAQA.
Could you have foreseen this as Universities South Africa, or indeed the Department of Higher Education and Training, the large number of 2024 pupils who will ultimately need space at tertiary institutions? Or was this completely unforeseen?
No, it was not unforeseen, because even the previous year, there were more students that qualified for bachelor passes than the available spaces. So it's not happening for the first time. It has been happening for quite some time, but the only issue is that the department has been promising to build universities. There are 2 universities that they promised to build. I don't know about the progress, the level of progress that has been made in that front.
Yeah. How have you handled the large number in the past?
The universities do plan together with the department the number of students that they can take. Some universities just look at performance to see who can be taken for a particular qualification. Then, on the basis of people who accept the offers, then they go down the list and check the others who are available. But there is intention to stick to those numbers, because if they exceed them by 2% up or down, there are penalties which are involved, and also there's infrastructure shortage which is involved.
Yeah. TVET colleges, I know you don't speak for them, they seem to carry a particular stigma. Do you encourage those that are unable to find space at your institutions to perhaps look at those vocational institutions? And what is the attitude, would you say?
It's so strange because when looking at them, for children, I'm talking about personally now, my own children,
Yeah.
At home, there has been no space, even within the TVET colleges. And they promised with the next intake, which is supposed to be June, July, and they said that they would open up new applications in April. So it's full everywhere you go.
Let's talk about another matter that has raised eyebrows, and particularly on the social media space. People have been very unhappy about this particular practice by universities. So there is a registration fee that we understand is not refundable. It would range, but in this instance, I think an amount of 200 rands is requested. So you pay this over as a prospective student, but when you don't find space, it is not paid back to you. Some people saying that this is a way of universities making money. How would you respond to that?
It's the application fee, not registration fee.
Yes,
So,
thank you for that correction.
When students apply, most universities charge this amount of money to cover their overheads. So there has been an outcry because of students who are coming from low socioeconomic backgrounds, and the feeling is that they are being prohibited from applying. So that is the issue. So for universities, this money is used for processing the applications in terms of all the overhead staff, systems, and people are going to believe that systems require a lot of funds for them to stay stable, when they experience the whole issue of unstable systems at registration time, where they think they want to register and the next thing they are given error messages and they try and you have to ensure that these systems are above board, and the way to do so is by providing funding. So universities differ in their principles of funding whatever activities or operations within the universities. There are those which will do cross-subsidization. There are those which will feel that the user must pay for the services that they are getting.
Yeah.
So in this instance, a few universities are doing that cross-subsidization, and some are insisting that the user has to pay. When a student has not been admitted, all the processes have been followed to process their application. And when they ask why they have not been admitted, there should be an answer to that. So that amount of money is for both staff, it's for systems, it's for processing. And people do not believe that when these huge numbers of students have applied, then that processing should be that much. Then that's another question altogether.
Yeah.
But the idea that your application has to be processed and you must not pay any money for it is what is the problem. So we need to come up with a solution which is saying who is going to pay for this money and for who.
So
if we're looking at students, because it's not all students who are coming from low socioeconomic backgrounds.
Yes.
So who then should be paying for students who are coming from low socioeconomic backgrounds?
I'll tell you why.
So that is the key question.
Yeah. Dr. Matutu, I'll tell you why this is a huge outcry. And it is based on an example that I'm going to give you. And I'm not going to name and shame the institution. I'm simply going to read the extract of, part of it, of what the person has posted online. And they make mention of this institution, which they say received over 146,000 applications for the academic year 2024. They could only accept 62,000 new students. This means that 139,800 students were rejected. All of them have paid an application fee of 200 rands. This institution, therefore, has made a profit of 27,960 rand. And this is now the amount of people rejected and therefore the profits from that. Are you able to understand this? Because they go as far as to say this is actually a scam of the highest order. Surely that can't sit well with you as leader of these institutions. A solution has got to come somehow.
I don't understand how people can decide on a profit without knowing what the costs are for the service that is being provided, from the staffing cost to the systems cost to the infrastructure cost. Because if you don't know those, you can't talk about profits. I have been asked by 17 universities to look at the licensing, licensing costs which provide this service of selection of students, registration of students, and so on, where the costs ballooned within a matter of 1 year. So we have an idea of how much these things cost. So it's very difficult for students to talk about, or for people to talk about profits without understanding what the costs are. It has been so strenuous for universities to deal with this particular instance. I'm talking about the very system which is ensuring that registration, applications are being processed.
Yeah.
So without knowing how much those cost, it's very difficult for one to talk about profit.
Dr. Phethiwe Matutu, I want to thank you very much for your time. Hopefully a solution has got to come from somewhere. She is the CEO of Universities South Africa. And just to correct myself, the figure actually that is said to have been profited by that particular institution is actually 27 million. I made a mistake of saying 27,000. 27 million rand is the amount. All right, it's a story that we are going to have to keep a close watch on, and hopefully the Higher Education Department can opine on it as and when we get a chance to talk to them.